A package just arrived in the mail. I ordered it off eBay a while ago and then promptly forgot about it. It's a Bontempi Memoplay. It's from 1981. I don't really know anything about this machine, but I do love the way it looks. It's as though Bontempi traveled into the future, figured out which design details were going to have retro appeal, and then built a product around it. Okay, let's put some batteries in this thing and try it out. Okay, that's kind of cool sounding. The keys feel really weird. Sometimes I'll play a note and then nothing happens, and then like half a second later the note starts to play. What happens when I press one of these? Oh, I see. So it's been recording this whole time, and now it's playing back what I just played. Although the timing seems wrong. Let's see what happens when I press the other memory button. Nothing. Maybe I have to record something? Oh, I guess it has preset songs in it too. My guess is that each key corresponds to a different song. Yep, story checks out. All in all, this thing is pretty primitive. There's no way of changing the sound, not even a volume control. Still, I think it could sound really cool if we sampled it or put it through some effects. So normally the way we would do that is we would hook up the external output to an effects unit or something like that. Unfortunately, this doesn't have an external output, so we need to open it up and add one. I should probably take the batteries out before I do this. Let's take the keyboard out just so we can get a better look at the circuit board. Okay, so that's what we're working with here. On the other side here, there's an integrated circuit that controls the memory functions of the keyboard. With all these exposed solder points, my guess is this thing would be really great for circuit bending, but right now we're just trying to add a headphone jack. In fact, for what we're doing, we don't even really need access to the circuit board. We're going to be putting a little headphone jack right here. In order to make room for it, I'm going to drill a hole in the back of the case. Next, I'm going to unsolder the speaker. The jack is set up so that when a cable is plugged into it, it bypasses the internal speaker. But when there's no cable, the speaker continues to work. I'm suddenly realizing that I'm actually not going to be able to test this if there are no batteries in it, so I'm putting them back in. After doing some quick tests with alligator clips, I'm ready to actually solder this thing. Once all the wires have been attached, I'm ready to screw the jack into the back of the case. Before we put this thing back together, we should probably test it out to make sure it still works. Nice. Let's put the case back together. Now that I got this working, my first order of business is, of course, to sample it. In practice, this just means hitting record on my computer and then holding down a few keys. Here's what the waveform it's generating looks like. As you can see, it's sort of a pulse wave. As I sample this, I'm noticing a few things. Of course, it's way out of tune, and that's easy enough to fix in the samples, but also, every so often, there's this weird glitch. Did you hear that? It sounds like it's stuttering, but it's not. I zoomed in on the waveform and you see these nice, regular cycles, just like you'd expect, except, once in a while, one of these little pieces is too long. And that's what's causing the glitch. Something must be happening internally that's interfering with the tone generation. I guess it's all just part of the charm of this particular instrument. Okay, here's what the resulting sample library looks like. I'm going to turn the release up. As you can see, I ended up sampling both the direct output as well as the sound of the speaker. Okay, let's get back to the real device. The next thing I want to do is see how the Memoplay sounds with external effects. Specifically, I want to try it out with a microcosm by Hologram and the generation loss by Chase Bliss. If you don't know what these are, the hologram makes everything sound spacey and cinematic, and the generation loss makes everything sound like it was recorded on a cassette tape and then left in the sun. So the first thing I want to do is just play some random notes in the key of C. Hopefully the Memoplay is recording this. Once I'm done, I'm going to hit the memory recall button. Let's turn on our cassette simulation. We can choose a sound profile by turning this knob. That's better. Now let's turn on the microcosm. I can see now I'm going to need a keep re-triggering that sequence. As the keyboard plays its little melody back, with its strangely misremembered rhythm, the notes start to stack up inside the microcosm. A whole world of sound gets constructed, only to be tempered and distressed by the generation loss pedal. I'm going to try playing the keyboard directly. Oh, it's really beautiful. I'm definitely going to have to sample this sound too. Of course, right now, we're not hearing the dry signal at all. Let's try introducing some of that back into the mix. The raw sound is quite trebly. Sounds like a swarm of bees. I'm going to sample this. Ultimately, I think I prefer it with the microcosm turned all the way up. Oh, it's great. It's funny how I keep playing chords even though this is a monophonic synth. No matter what I press, only one note is coming out. So as it happens, I did end up sampling these sounds. I've made a second sample library that looks like this, and that's what you're hearing right now. Of course, now that we've got ourselves a sample library, we don't have to limit ourselves to hardware effects. This is Refractions, a plugin that I released a few weeks ago. Basically, the effect is always listening, taking in sound, and then it uses a sequencer to play that sound back at different pitches in a loop. So if I play a single note, right now I have the mix knob all the way down, so what we're hearing is just the raw sound from the synth, and as I turn the mix knob up, you can immediately hear Refractions doing its thing. If we switch over to the editor tab, we can see the exact pattern that's being played back over and over again. And we can use the editor to change the pattern if we want. All this time I've been holding down single notes, but we're not limited to that. If I play several notes at the same time, it'll arpeggiate the whole chord. So anyway, that's the basic premise of Refractions. There are a million different ways of using this thing. I've barely scratched the surface of what it can do here. I think it's a lot of fun, and I find it hugely addictive. It's crazy to think that all the sound we're hearing right now started with that toy keyboard. When I opened up the box and heard the first few notes, I was skeptical that beautiful music could really come out of this machine. It's a great reminder for me of how transformative a few well-chosen effects can be. On the whole, I'm really coming around on this thing. Bontempi is an Italian company, they still exist today, and in the 1970s, they were known mostly as a maker of fan organs. In fact, a while ago, I actually made a video about one, which I'll link to. The release of this model in 1981 marks their transition into fully electronic music instruments, which is why the packaging tries to get so much mileage out of the fact that this has a little computer in it. Of course, in reality, it's an extremely basic little keyboard. Its only real feature, besides being able to play Jingle Bells, is that it can play back what you just played, although it seems to add its own sense of timing to the proceedings, all of which is, of course, part of its charm. If you enjoyed this video, it'd be great if you could give this a like. If you haven't done so yet, now is a great time to subscribe. I've got a bunch of other videos in the works. Refractions, the effect I was messing around with towards the end of this video, is on sale right now. For the next 2 weeks, it's $29. After that, it goes back up to the list price, which is $99. So if this seems like your kind of effect, you may want to grab that while it's still on sale. The basic version of this library is available for free to anyone, and the super cool effects version is up on the Patreon. Speaking of which, the Patreon costs just $5, and every month I upload a brand new exclusive sample library just for patrons. There have been a ton so far, and if you use the same email address for Patreon as you do for Decent Sampler, you can actually download the sample libraries right from within the Decent Sampler plugin, which I think is pretty cool. Okay, I think that's it. Enjoy!